the co-founder of Apple Software, but I'll take it. I'm the COO there, but I'm also a dad, and that's kind of my major role, and a husband. So like I kind of put things in order, right? Like God, family, then all this other stuff.
Amen.
Amen. All right, so cool. Just a little background on me. I grew up in a small town called Orange Cove. Anyone know where Orange Cove is? It's not SoCal. It's not. It's farming. And I was not a farmer, and we had not the money that farmers had, right? So I was the kind of the scrappy kid who was knocking on doors asking my neighbors if I could scoop their dog food for money, you know, and I was the kid with the backpack at school with candy bars until the principal found out I was doing that. And, you know, and my brother even, I have an older brother, and he's a certified Mensa genius, like a Mensa certified genius, right? And he was a rule follower, and I am not either of those things, right? And so I was the kid who was shooting him with the BB gun, getting in trouble all the time. But he used to tease me all the time because I used to duct tape my shoes because they get holes in them. We couldn't afford new shoes. And I used to wear sweats that get holes in them, and duct tape was my friend there too, you know. And he used to call me a moon man. I was wearing my moon boots because they're all silver, you know. So I come up from different beginnings, I think, than most people would think, you know, in this area. I loved it too. You know, I feel like that was a huge blessing to me to grow up with not as much as my friends had, not as much as other people had, because I do feel like it made me scrappy, you know, and this is even called start of grind, you know, and I think the best entrepreneurs, yeah, that's the theme, right? Like, I think the best entrepreneurs are the ones who have some of that in their background, because they don't take things for granted. I certainly didn't. You know, Manu, who was speaking at in the other room just now, mentioned the resources we have here, and I'm a believer in that. Dr. Olson Buchanan, who was up there first, is a former mentor of mine who I credit with kind of getting me on track. You know, I was with her when I was at Fresno State, and I was still kind of figuring out how to not be a screw up. And anyway, a lot of people around this valley. For those of you who want to start a business, it's a great place to start it. So some of my entrepreneurship background, like I said, I was selling candy bars, scooping poop, washing cars, doing whatever I could to make a buck. And I started my first business. My first job was actually in fruit because it's an ag industry, right? And I think I was 15. I think you can get a work permit when you're 15, and I got fired 2 weeks after I started that job because I sucked at it. Sorry, I was bad at it. But it taught me, like, this is not fun, and I better study, and I better work hard for my own thing. And I started my first business. I didn't even know it was a business. I just knew I could make more money doing that than, you know, packing and picking fruit. So I started giving swim lessons also when I was 15 one summer, and my friends were working in packing sheds and in the fields, and I was by a pool with a swimsuit on.
Did your parents not give you allowance money? Is that why?
Oh no, we made commission. We didn't make allowance.
Okay.
You don't just get money for a living, right? You got to earn it, you know. In fact, my commission was like, "Hey, Mom, Dad, can I wash your car?" And they're like, "Sure, $2." And I'm like, "Great," you know. And they're going, "This is a deal," you know, that kind of thing. But no, they were very supportive of all the stuff I did. I mean, they bought the candy bars I sold at school, and then, you know, so don't worry about the principal too much, you know. Very supportive. But so in fact, when I was doing the swim lessons business, I was able to put myself through college with that, and you know, you learn about working with customers and expectations and how to collect money. That was weird. I'm 15, 16, and I'm, you know, asking someone who's much older than me for money. And that's kind of hard at first, you know, but you get used to it, and you know, you provide a certain level of service, and you realize that certain things you do aren't acceptable.
Were there times they just shut you down and were like, no?
No, they were just like, you know, "Hey, you look really tired today."
Yeah.
They were very polite about it because I'd work from 8 in the morning till it got dark,
Yeah.
you know, trying to get as much in as I could. By that dark 30, I'm tired, you know, and then that poor kid who's trying to learn how to swim is almost drowning in my arms. So, you know, not really. But you know, you learn, okay, maybe I'm pushing a little too hard, you know, and maybe I should be thinking about them more than I'm thinking about me, and those are some of those early lessons. And then, so I've gone on to start several companies, whether it's my wife and I do a lot of real estate. I was a house flipper for a while, still do portfolio stuff, property stuff, some tech startups. I helped Tim Getz, who is the founder of Apple Software.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the early?
At Applos?
Yes.
Oh man. Oh yeah. I'll keep it relevant to what we're doing. It's fun. Like, he is super smart, wicked smart, and a super hard worker. And we work really hard on building a fantastic team over there. We've got something like 60 employees now. When I started, I think I was maybe number 5 or something, you know. Early days were having no money and working long nights and weekends and talking directly with every customer that came in. I think when we started, our monthly revenue was $8,000 when I started. Currently, I think we're making whatever $7 million a year is divided by 12. So it's grown a bit.
So when you were talking to these customers early on and trying to navigate through the money situation, how did you guys overcome that whole situation?
You post on every blog you can find that's related to the product you're selling. You get on Facebook and you tell your friends to share. You go on things like Quora, and post whatever you can to get the word out. And you talk, you share your story. We were fortunate to get connected to a guy named Eric Hansen here in town. He's a surgeon here in town who believed in the vision of what we were doing and encouraged us and gave us some early seed money. And we used that seed money to kind of grow our team, build some marketing, that kind of thing. And then he got us connected to a venture capitalist, a very well-known one named Tomasz Tungas, who is everything SaaS, and we're a SaaS company. And so Tim and Eric went and met with Tomasz, and he said, yeah, I think you're cash constrained. I think you should raise money, which is why San Joaquin Capital, which is one of our firms, got started. We started San Joaquin Capital to fund Aplos with local money rather than going to the Bay Area. And so we founded that, talked to individual investors about the individual investment, which is a little different. A lot of times it's a multi-use fund. We did a single-purpose fund. And so we talked with local investors directly, got in the room with them, and we found enough of them to say yes.
What were some of the things that these local investors were looking for? Like, was there something specific they asked of you, or did you go with the checklist?
Will I get more money back than I'm giving you? I think that was they're excited, they were great, right? They're supportive. They like the Fresno business doing the Fresno thing, and we were happy that they like that. But they're investors, right? They want a return on their money. And so when I wrote the business plan for that fundraise, I was very specific with the metrics we threw in there and with the marketing numbers. For those of you who are, going to start a business, want to start a high growth kind of business, your numbers are everything. So we are good at measuring that at Aplos, and we presented that, I think, pretty well.
Did you guys project a certain amount of time, or what was
for an exit?
Yeah.
No, not for an exit. We presented the 2 years that would come after the investment and what we thought the investment could be worth 2 years from then, and we were very open that we had no timeline for exit, and we were very clear about that in early meetings. And we've had some very great support from our investors.
How did you guys break down the 2 years? Like, was it monthly, quarterly?
So 2 years was a monthly breakdown. We had the first 6 months had to be the most accurate. Obviously, they put their money in. They want to know what's happening immediately. And so that was the most accurate. We actually did give a few more years in the future that wasn't monthly. It was more quarterly, yearly kind of thing. I'm happy to say we hit the first 2 year numbers, so that's pretty good. It's always a good thing when you say, this is what we're trying to do with your money, and then when you do it, they're like, oh, we believe you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we did that, and it was, when you have the numbers, when you're measuring how your marketing acquisition is working, like, it costs this many dollars to get a new customer, and if you just put more dollars in it, you should have more customers. When it's a math equation, it's easier to hit the numbers. So we didn't project based on hope. We projected based on numbers. And so that's, I think, why we hit those numbers early on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are some other things that, like the attitude of these investors, like in the Central Valley or outside of the Central Valley? Like,
Sure.
what specifically are they looking for?
Depends on what investor you're talking about. So we've talked to a lot of angel investors, I would call them, that we organized into limited partners of a venture capital firm. There's a lot there, right? But essentially, the people we talked about here, or two here, are farmers, our surgeons, our doctors, our insurance folks, bankers, that kind of thing, who've done well for themselves. We just happened to create the tool for them to pool all their money together, which was San Joaquin Capital. So San Joaquin Capital is a venture capital firm, but these folks that are investing are, I would consider, more angels or limited partners in that capital firm, not the corporation itself. That's a different person than the venture capital firms we're talking to now, and the kind of money that we're looking at now. So what were they like? They were good people.
Yeah.
Fresno's got a lot of good people.
What was like the percentage they asked? Were they like greedy at all?
No, not at all. They were very supportive, very excited for what we were doing. And we, when I say we, I mean Aplos said we need $4 million. And we're willing to give up, what did we give up? I can't remember if it was pre-money. What did we give up? I can't remember if it was pre-money 16 million and post 20. I think that's what it was. So pre-investments 16 million, post money 20 million. And we said we were willing to give up that percentage, 16%, 20%, for $4 million. And we presented why we thought it was a good investment. And I still believe that we've really given them a good return on their money. Yeah. And so it wasn't a hard negotiation. They just wanted to make sure it was worth it to them, kind of thing. It's more of a negotiation now with the larger venture capital firms. These corporations, I mean, they have salespeople and they have, much more money. They're writing much bigger checks, and they want to see a much bigger return.
So during the 2 years of getting investment and trying to make it through that fog, like what were some of the uncertainties in between that period of growth?
I think there's always, a little. I don't want to call it doubt. I'm pretty confident in our team, in our leadership there. I feel like all the problems that we've had in the past, we've been able to solve well. Mm-hmm. And so we have current problems that we're trying to solve. I'm confident that we'll solve them.
Yeah.
But you never know because you don't have the answer yet, right? So early on, we used that money to increase our marketing spend specifically with Google AdWords and to build out our product more, because at the time we were charging $15 per month per customer, and that's hard to build a big fast-growing business at $15 a month unless you're a consumer product like a Netflix. Mm-hmm. We're a business-to-business product, so we needed to get to much higher than that, and so building out the product, making that value for the customer, those are the things you're like, I wouldn't call it scary, but it's just like, it takes time, right? Like you got to work at it. So yeah.
So after the 2 year of returning the investment money, what was next for Aplos there? Like what happened next? Did you guys skyrocket? What happened exactly? What were
so it's a good question. Did we skyrocket? Venture capital looks for the 10x return, right? Like they're looking for the hockey stick, and our growth rate was exponential in those 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we had X squared plus or whatever it is, So yeah, we skyrocketed because it was just pouring fuel onto this fire that could grow. We're now at a position where we've tapped out Google AdWords, on a monthly basis. There are not that once you put enough money into Google AdWords, there are not more people searching the terms that you need searched. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that is one acquisition channel, and we've tapped it out.
Okay.
So now the problem we're solving is, okay, how do you get the next channel? We have other channels, but I'm just saying, you get one channel at a time of acquisition, and you're always looking for those next ones, running experiments, doing things to figure out where you need to be. We know that we have to get our price point north of $200 a month to be able to do a sales acquisition model. Just the math. You look at how much you pay a salesperson, what commission is, and all this stuff, and what are normal close rates. Physically, you have to have a product that's $200 or more, probably more like $250 a month to make that acquisition channel work. So we're growing our product to get it there. Eventually we'll be there, but we're doing other things in the meantime.
Sure.
Yeah.
What are some of those channels? Can you share?
Yeah. We have what we would call a top-down approach. Aplos serves nonprofits and church customers. So we started as an accounting software solution for them. So we would call it QuickBooks for nonprofits or churches, although QuickBooks doesn't do fund accounting, which is what they need.
Yeah.
So we've got all these people going, I'm just bad at accounting. And we're like, no, you're using a tool meant for business, that kind of thing. And so when they get into our tool, they're like, oh my goodness, this is so easy. And I'm just like, well, we built it for you, not for a business kind of thing. And so we started with accounting, and we've grown into a full platform. So now folks can run events through us. They can, do Sunday school check-in, that kind of thing at churches, many things in between. And so some of those acquisition channels, when we talk about top-down, there's large denominations of churches who were talking to their corporate boards on what they would like to see throughout the nation in their churches. A lot of the top-down nonprofits, what they would like to see at all of their locations around the United States. So now that's an acquisition channel, right? But it's a hand-holding thing. It's not an automated thing. Like a one-off nonprofit goes to our website, sees the value proposition, we give them a free trial, they try the software, they like it, they sign up. All automated. If they need help, we're there to help. This other one is very handheld. Like go send people on an airplane to the corporate headquarters, pitch to them, tell them why we're awesome, that kind of thing. So those are kind of the other channels we're working through right now.
Was it hard at the beginning? Because Fresno, I feel, is a little conservative, or the Valley in general. Were you guys specifically targeting the Valley, or were you guys more focused outside the Valley?
No, we targeted the customer more than the Valley. In fact, we most of the folks from the Valley don't know we're here. Okay. They're like, oh, you're in Fresno. We're on the phone with them. Can we just come down there? And we have an office that's built for building software, not for greeting customers. So we've actually created a room for customers to come in. And so now people do come in, and we if they're here local, we're happy to meet with them and give them the extra service because they're local, that kind of thing. And so we do get customers. In fact, yesterday we had some customers there, and they were like, we just found out you were from Fresno and we're right down the street, and that kind of tickles us a little bit because, they didn't find us because they know us. Mm-hmm. They found us because of one of our acquisition channels, and it's working, yeah, all right, cool. That's awesome. But yeah, so no, we didn't target Fresno. We built it here because we're here. The resources are cheaper here. If you take just our office, for example, our office, we were able to find a pretty sweet deal a few years ago, and room to expand. We have about 20,000 square feet, and we only needed about 8,000 when we moved into it. Now we're really kind of pushing out a little bit. But that in the Bay Area would cost us so much money, we would have had to close our business in 3 months. Yeah. It's just you have to get just an absorbent amount of money just to pay rent, in some areas like that. So our resources here are abundant. They're cheaper. We can find talent here. Especially in our marketing. We've got some amazing marketing folks who've gone through Fresno State, who have later started their own marketing companies, and now we've hired them in their own marketing company. Yeah.
Have you invested in other businesses in the Valley, or
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So San Joaquin Capital, we made one. So, an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Tim, who I work with every day at Apples, is a serial entrepreneur, and sometimes it's bad to get two serial entrepreneurs in a room, because you get like an hour off from what you're doing and you're like, we should start another business, right? And so that was what we did with San Joaquin Capital. And we were like, we can do this, and we can pool money, and we can help all these entrepreneurs, and we've got access. I was still teaching at Fresno State at the time, and I still teach at Reed Lee College. And so we started, San Joaquin Capital. We funded Benchmark Intelligence, which is a former student of mine, and he's got a good team, and they're still working on it and still doing well. It hasn't been the hockey stick we expected, and they've learned a lot, but I still believe in their team, and their product's really good. And so I'm optimistic about that. Me personally, outside of San Joaquin Capital, I'm an angel investor as well, so I've invested in half a dozen to a dozen of my former students. It's usually my former students. I get a long time of interviewing with them, right? They sit in a semester or 2 semesters, so I know who they are, and if I think their idea has teeth, I'll help them out with it. But
so you know who has money now. So if you're trying to start a business,
I'm tapped out.
Go to Eric.
Tapped out. No, yeah. No, it's fun though, right? Like, I mean, you have these folks who are hungry and smart and talented and willing to put in long hours and willing to build a product that really serves a need, and they've got that problem solution scenario in mind, and they're willing to listen to you and take your advice, and if you say, hey, we're going to have a team lunch at Apples, would you like to come? They're like, yeah, they're hungry for all of that. It's easy to get on board with them. It's easy to want them to succeed, and the money we're talking about is not a ton of money. It's a little bit of money, and so and there's money everywhere. For those of you who are starting businesses, I'm telling you, there's so much money in the Valley looking for a place to hide, or not hide, but to invest, and looking for a place to, and hide, but looking for a place to invest. There are many people who believe in entrepreneurship in this Valley, and it's really about connecting, I think, those people to the entrepreneurs who need that capital. I would argue, though, that we need to do a better job of helping entrepreneurs to understand what the money's looking for, what an investor cares about, especially in early stage businesses. I think there's this concept with a lot of young folks that I talk to that I've got a really, really good idea, so now I'll go get money. I think there could be room for that, especially with accelerator programs. Like the Wet Center is fantastic. I would recommend to go see Benjamin all day, every day. Former student of mine, by the way. But I would also say you got to have skin in the game. You know, if you're not willing to get a part-time job or a full-time job and invest your hard-earned money in your own idea to start giving it some teeth and some traction, why would anyone else invest in it? You know, and I think a lot of times we think that I can do everything but the money. And it is, you will lose more money, by the way, missing opportunities than you ever will by making mistakes. And you got to be okay with that. Like, you got to go out and try something and spend money that never comes back to you, and be okay with that and count that as your journey. Like some of you students, you're sitting in classrooms, I don't know how many hours a week, right? Where you could be working. You're giving up that money. You are spending money being a student. Yeah, we're totally golden with that. And if I say, but I want you to spend $2,000 on your own idea, you're like, whoa, hold on, you know. We gotta rethink what we're doing. That is a big part of your entrepreneurship education, is to go put money in your own thing, you know. And as people see that, as investors see that, they will see that you're willing to do what it takes to make this thing go, and they're going to be more confident in you, I think, to be willing to put money with your money.
For the entrepreneurs that are trying to start their business in this room, what is some advice you'd give them? Like, direct them and...
Wow. Just keep a focus that every business is built on solving a problem. So your solution can come in the form of a product, a service, or a combo of those. It could be technology, it could be a physical product, it could be an ag-based product, it could be service, whatever it is. You get paid to make other people's lives easier and better. And so never forget that. And you're not doing it for everybody. You got to know who your target is, right? You got to have conversations with them. You've got to meet them. And, you know, one of the assignments I typically give or I help with, if it's not a student, is, hey, I want you to go talk to 30 of your target. And if I get feedback like I can't find them, I'm like, how are you going to advertise to them then? How are you going to get in front of them to sell it? If you can't even get in front of them to ask them a few questions, how are you going to sell it to them? You know, you have to be connected to that customer in a way that you understand their problem well enough that you can solve it. You know, I mean, you got to really solve problems. And that's what you get paid to do. So my advice would be build a great solution. Build a great solution, you know, and never forget that's what you're in business to do, is to make their lives easier.
So do you have a certain approach, I don't know, like steps, like tackling a problem? How do you approach a problem? So it's a problem, but like, how do you, you know you're going to get it fixed, but
yeah,
what's
so
the first step there?
Well, there's this guy named Steve Blank from Stanford. Fantastic guy. Read his stuff for you students. He's all about customer development, which is the buzzword you can look up on Google. And that's the first step. You go meet with customers, you ask them, you know, like I think a lot of students go, okay, I'm going to go to a restaurant. I'll use Benchmark as an example. They serve restaurants. So they'll go to a restaurateur and they'll go, how can we help you collect feedback for your restaurant? It's the wrong question to ask. They already have this solution in mind that they're going to provide. They need to go, what's the worst part about your day? And then just listen. If you want to serve a customer, they'll tell you, well, it's not about collecting feedback. It's like, you know, this complaint came in and then they're posting on Yelp that there's this negative experience. We didn't even know the bathroom was dirty. And they're posting on Yelp, and now I've got bad reviews on Yelp. Okay, so now let's design this solution based on that. You know, that's the kind of thing. So, you know, there are steps to solving the problem, but it first starts with the customer, like who you're solving it for. It does help if you are one of your own customers too, because you feel the pain. You know how that problem is and what you can do to kind of solve it. But yeah, start with the customer and ask and listen. Just listen. Don't try to prove to the customer that your solution is right or your idea for a solution is right. Just listen and ask open-ended questions. Take lots of notes. And I love it because I'll have students and they'll create this solution, or, you know, I get a lot of t-shirt companies and I got this great t-shirt company. I'm like, I know you're the third this semester, you know. Great. And they go, or whatever. I got an idea for a restaurant. And everyone I talk to says it's awesome. So it's good, man. I've done my feasibility. And I'll go, who are you talking to, you know? Well, my mom, my dad. I'm like, no, they're lying to you. They love you. They're like, good job, buddy. You know, like, the question isn't, do you like my idea? The question is, it's $10. Do you want one? And if they say no, then they don't like your idea.
Yeah.
if they say yes, then maybe you're onto something. But you can't sell it to them. It doesn't matter what they tell you. You're in front of them. They don't want to hurt your feelings, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you got to go out there and try it and do things and start a smaller version of what you want to start and see what happens. You know, mix it up a little bit.
So at what point in time would you start pivoting if
Immediately. I don't know what the rest of that question was, but go ahead.
for like an idea that's not working out, or you think it's working out but it's not bringing you any money? Like when is the time to start pivoting?
That's a fantastic question. I think it depends on the company, the business, what you're doing. You, as an entrepreneur, if you get up in the morning and you're like, oh, I gotta work on this thing and I can't crack it and this is not fun, then I think you gotta pivot. I think, chase the thing that is making you curious and chase it crazy. I've got 12 irons in the fire right now. 11 of them will probably lose money. But one of them might grab, right? And I don't spend 60 hours a week on one thing. I'm a little neurotic though, so know who you are. But like, I would get bored. I can't be in one location for more than like 3 hours without having to get out. Like, I'm just weird, okay? But with that, it's like you never know when you're starting out if it's going to work. So you might as well get a bunch of things started. And things take calendar time, not necessarily hours to work themselves out. Like, if you call someone, you're waiting for them to call you. What you're doing is not solving their problem, at least the value you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to charge $80 a month for what your service is and no one's signing up, drop your price. Change the value proposition. Change the messaging. You got to change, right? Einstein,
Yeah.
sanity, that kind of thing. Right, cool.
We're big. Allie, there's big Einstein fans.
Yeah.
So I had
Yeah, don't bang your head into the wall over and over, right? Like, totally. Yeah.
So pivoting is something we have to incorporate into the process.
And I would even call it experimenting. Like, if
Yeah.
you treat everything you do as an experiment, you don't put as much pressure on yourself to, quote, win or succeed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an experiment. So if it doesn't work, it's an experiment. It's bound, some of these are bound to not work, and that's okay. I think you give yourself permission to, like, be willing to do things that will never work. And you have to have that permission, I think. Otherwise, you think, I need to know from the beginning that it will work. And if you do that, you just won't get enough done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, any final words for the crowd? We're going to be wrapping up.
Sure, yeah. I would say especially for young and folks who want to start businesses and want to be entrepreneurs, you got to realize something. You already have what you need to be successful. You already have it. I think a lot of times our young folks think, well, if I just get a couple more years of education or do some more research or go meet this person that has money or whatever, then I'll have enough. You already have enough. You already have enough. In fact, you have more time than the people who give you money anyway. And that's what the limited resources is, that time. And I would encourage you to go chase those curiosities, figure those things out, and start building now. Like, just go. Just go. For sure.
We're going to open it up for questions. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, questions.
Just curious, while you're at Fresno State, what was your major and what resources did you take advantage of on the campus?
While I was at Fresno State, what was my major and what resources? Okay, so I was in the very first entrepreneurship class at Fresno State, go figure, right? There were 8 people in Entrepreneurship 81 in my class. There are now 137 this semester, I think, in Entrepreneurship 81. I was one of 3 of the first Entrepreneurship Emphasis graduates. Yeah, so me and 2 other guys that we still keep in contact. And I took advantage of the instructors who were willing to spend time with me. There was a guy named Dr. Bob Hill. He was the one who taught me about that opportunity thing because I was afraid to lose money in college. I'm like, I'm going to spend $500 on this. He's like, dude, go spend $500, So their time, Dr. Olson Buchanan was amazing. Amazing. What a great mentor she was to me. Just keeping my head screwed on straight. The Lyle Center was a tiny office back then. So Janelle was there back then, and I would pick her brain and Dr. Stearns and their brain. But frankly, what is there now is so much better than what we had back then. Yeah. I was entrepreneurship all the way, 100%.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So leadership is a very important foundation to any organization, right? So what is your view on leadership, and what type of leadership do you identify yourself with?
Wow.
Woo.
That's one of
That
those
was a loaded one.
big questions.
Kind of studying leadership.
Philosophy right there, right? What? Leadership, man. Okay. I'm a very relational person. I love people. I'm not the guy, if you put me in charge of a group of people at the office, I'm not the one going, are you doing your work? I'm like, hey, come to me if you need help, and here's all the rope you need, and you can either take care of it or hang yourself. Like, I find out after I'm not a good manager, right? I love solving problems with people, with a team. So my leadership style is very relational in that way. Like, I love encouraging people. I want to be the one who supports the idea that gets made. I don't have great ideas, frankly. I would also say that because I'm a little scattered, I'm not the consistency that any company really needs at the lead. I'm not out front like that. So my leadership style is very much built on having 5-minute personal conversations with as many people at the office as I can on a daily basis. It's being in the room when there's a strategy conversation, because that's my game. And it's the analytical stuff I like to be part of. But at the end of the day, I think the best leaders are really, really good cheerleaders, and who understand their limitations and are humble and understand that there is zero chance of being successful if you think you're better than the people you work with. It's not happening. Physically, you don't have time to do that, right? Like, and just, it won't happen. So I think for me, the best leaders are those encouragers, those cheerleaders, those servant leaders. In fact, the people who I look at as my leaders in my life, what I realize is they have encouraged me. When I screw up, because I screw up a lot, they give me grace. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's so much pressure to perform in our world, and there's always, like, everyone wants to put blame on something for some, or on someone for something or whatever. And it's very, it's not very pragmatic. You don't move forward when you're looking backwards and go, well, it's his fault or their fault or this fault. And I think it limits your growth in life in general, but also in business when you do that. I think, I think a good leader gives grace. I believe that. So I hope that answers your. It's a big question, man. Awesome.
It's just so much of the ideologies that I identify myself with.
Awesome.
So thank you for that, Eric.
Yeah, cool. Very
Any
cool.
more questions?
Sure, I apologize for not identifying you as a COO.
I just didn't want to steal his thunder. Like, he's the dude, man.
Yeah, well, you are the dude, okay?
Oh, gosh.
But can you talk more about what an operations officer does, what you do, and how that fits into the whole vibe?
I'll talk about what an operations officer does, and I will then talk about what I do.
Okay.
Because it's different. An operations officer usually has the roll-up spreadsheet that's tracking the numbers at the top, whether it's from finance or marketing or growth rates and all that stuff. And I do look at that stuff. I'm not saying I don't. But those funnel up from leads of your departments. So if we're looking at acquisition strategy, I would be following up with my marketing director going, hey, how are the Google AdWords doing in terms of our metrics? Are we coming in where we need to come in to make money? And I do look at that stuff. I'm not saying I don't. But a typical operations manager would be doing that on a weekly basis. And I do that as needed. I am not typical. I would say that because of the way we built Aplos and because of my other roles in the community, like, I am still a full-time director at Reedley College. So I'm not full-time at Aplos. I don't physically have the hours to do all the things that a good COO should do. Again, I'm blessed to work with guys that understand my limitation and are okay with it. But they pick up some of those roles. And then Christy Qualley, who is one of our leads there at Aplos, she, I would say, takes a third of that COO role, where she's really tracking our growth, our sales, and all those numbers. So COO is kind of the roll-up of what gets done on a daily basis and make sure it fits the parameters of the metrics that we need to get it done in, whether it's financial, growth rates, all those things. That's what a COO does. What I do is more strategy focused. Like, I'm looking 1, 5, 10 years into the future. I'm looking at the economics of our society. I'm looking at our target market nationally and internationally. I'm looking at the bigger 30,000 foot view of the company with the COO, with the CFO. I'm monitoring our debt. Our bankers in the room. And I am making sure that we are not messing up in a big way, if that makes sense. Tim is a visionary. He is going. And I am his, if you're bowling, I'm the bumpers on that bowling alley lane. I'm going to make sure that we're safe, healthy and safe. And so, although my role sometimes is COO, sometimes is strategic advisor, it depends who you're asking and what I'm doing on that weekly basis. But that's what I do. So I'm looking at, I'll meet with different teams and help them figure out how to better. Like last week, I was meeting with the customer success team and giving them a North Star on how can you improve customer success and why is that so important to Aplos. Before that, I was working with our marketing team. Hey, what are the channels we need to get into and how does that become successful? So kind of lily padding a little bit. That answers your question. Cool. Awesome.
All right, thank you guys for